the short child occupational profile. The scope provides a broad overview of child's occupational participation and evaluates the factors that facilitate or restrict occupational participation. It is designed to be occupation-based, client-centered, and theory-driven. It can be used with children and adolescents ages birth to 21 years old. The strengths of the scope include its ability to create clear patterns of occupational strengths and challenges that can be used to plan interventions using the MOHO theory. It is effectively used as an initial evaluation and as an outcome measure to assess progress. It uses a variety of methods to gain knowledge and information. It is used by other rehab and educational practitioners, and it is useful for children who cannot complete standardized assessments. The results are easy to communicate to parents, and it is appropriate for a wide range of ages, diagnoses, and the pediatric practice continues to rely heavily on assessments that identify developmental deficits in motor, cognitive, and perceptual domains. The scope allows practitioners to assess personal and environmental factors that can impact the child's occupational performance and participation. It provides a clear, concise, and comprehensive framework for addressing the occupational participation of children and youth. It is suggested that if too much emphasis is on developmental norms, it inevitably penalizes the child with a disability. The question of whether a child is deviating from a norm or whether the child is able to achieve the kind of participation in life that fits with desires and environment. It leaves developmental considerations to the professional judgment of the practitioner to assess significance and applicability. The scope focuses on the developmental trajectory, which is considered as the unique potential of an occupational being. The scope is not norm-referenced nor criterion-referenced. It strictly focuses on the developmental trajectory of the child. There are several purposes of the scope. One is to describe occupational participation without concern of symptoms, diagnosis, age, or treatment setting. The purpose is to capture strengths and challenges through child's developmental trajectory. It is to assess factors through the use of the MOHO, identify areas of further assessment. Its purpose is to be simple, quick, and effective, and assess change over time. It is to support occupation-focused intervention. It also allows communication about participation with the team, including parents and other professionals. It is comprised of 25 total items, 6 sections. 5 of those sections are for personal factors, which include volition, habituation, communication, interaction skills, process, and motor, and 1 section is for the environment. It is considered the pediatric version of the MOHOST, the Model of Human Occupation Screening Tool. It was developed because pediatric therapists attempted to use the MOHOST but found it did not meet the needs of a pediatric population. It has strong psychometric properties, including validity, confirmed by the many-facet Roche model. Now we're going to look at how the scope and the MOHO go together. The items focus on issues of importance to practitioners working with children. The volition item exploration reflects on a series of volition, all concepts that facilitate play and learning. The act of exploration requires a child to have a level of interest, believe in the capacity to engage in the environment, and make an activity choice to try something. Other areas revolving around the environment and occupational demands require a practitioner to determine if task expectations match a child's ability. When task demands are under or over demanding, a child's ability to perform successfully will be impacted. The area truly set apart through the use of the scope is the area of volition and motivation. The scope uses a FAIR rating scale, which stands for Facilitates, Allows, Inhibits, and Restricts. The rating scale is to provide a theory-based assessment of a child's occupational participation, provide a profile of the child's strengths and challenges, guide intervention planning, and allow practitioners to assess change in a child or groups of children. It is not helpful to give the child the benefit of the doubt by giving a higher rating, since this does not capture the challenges that may be needing to be addressed through therapy. If deciding between 2 ratings, assign the lower rating. Use the question, is this item more likely to support, the child's participation or interfere with participation, and then decide the appropriate rating from there. When rating the environment, the rating reflects the impact the environment has on the child's participation. You are not rating the child's response to the environment. You can rate the environment in general, or you can rate a specific environmental context. In the manual for the scope, there is a flow chart which walks you through determining the best rating. It is important to remember all children have their own developmental trajectory. It is important as a practitioner to not impose your own individual cultural views when making ratings. It is important to be familiar with developmental factors that influence occupational performance and also use professional judgment to determine how those factors should influence the ratings. The practitioner is to assign ratings based on if the child has the capacity to perform better in the future or if the child's performance reflects his or her best capacity. There are several ways that you can obtain the information to score the scope. You can do an informal observation, a formal observation, interview with the child or parents, multidisciplinary team or teachers. You can read through case notes, medical and rehab records, and complete other formal assessments. When scoring, an F rating is given a 4, an A is given a 3, an I is given a 2, and an R is given a 1. The scores are totaled at the end to give an overall rating. You only score the scope if all items were given a rating. You can use the verbiage from the assessment to describe strengths and weaknesses. The amount of time between administrations is dependent on frequency and intensity of services. It is best practice that the same practitioner administer the scope to ensure changes in the rating reflect change in the child and environment and not differences in raters. The ultimate goal of the scope ratings is to generate goals and interventions that support a child's anticipation in childhood roles and occupations associated with them. When using the scope, you can refer to the goal and intervention planning chart in the manual to assist with goal writing and intervention planning. This is definitely a benefit of the scope and very useful to practitioners. A child's family is considered the most important member of the intervention team and can be asked to support engagement in activities outside of therapy and school. However, not all families wish to be involved in their child's intervention, and practitioners should respect the family's desired level of involvement. When determining how frequently to use the scope, it is important to consider that the scope is used to show progress through ratings increasing. Use the ratings to identify a child's need, an indication for further need for intervention or discharge. If the ratings do not increase, the possibility that the scope was administered too soon or the intervention may not have successfully addressed the needs of the child. Also consider setbacks that have been encountered, such as environmental changes. The manual provides example questions, definitions of certain terms, and keywords to use during the interview process. A parent report form is also included in English and in Spanish for the parent to complete. It indicates 20 personal activities and 7 environmental ratings of either being a challenge or being a strength. Also included in the manual are a parent and teacher in-depth interview outline, abbreviated format outline, and an overall snapshot of the interview to use. Luke is a 16-year-old male that has been receiving occupation-based, family-centered feeding therapy for approximately 1 year. He is homeschooled, and he lives at home with his parents and younger sister. His mother's name is Bethany, and she also participated in the videos as well. It is important when explaining an assessment to try to give the client some previous notice that the assessment is going to be used. When administering assessment, explain why the assessment is going to be done, what is entailed in doing the assessment, what the assessment is likely to reveal, and how the information will be used. It is appropriate to inform the client that one of the main aims of assessment is to clarify the client's desires and needs and ensure that they will be addressed seriously in therapy. Each client is individual, so make sure that when you are informing the client about the assessment that you follow their lead and provide the needs that they have. They show an increase in anxiety, be sure to calm them and comfort them. If their cognition is lower, be sure to explain it in a very simple and concise way. While completing the parent report form, Bethany requested to ask the OT a question regarding clarification. Throughout the feeding therapy session, new foods are presented in a hierarchical format. Discussion centers around the different properties of the food, including what it looks like, how it smells, how it tastes, and what it is made out of. These next two video examples will demonstrate new food presentation, how the therapist presents those foods, and how Luke interacts with those foods. Be sure to watch Luke's interaction, as this is what we will assess in the scope and provide ratings for in each domain. Throughout the feeding intervention session, foods are also presented that the client can be successful with. The following video is an example of a food that was presented that the client was able to eat, but the therapist was only able to touch. The client was able to show some volitional momentum to further prepare himself for future exposure to new foods. During the feeding session, you'll see the game Foodle sitting on the table. We use this trivia game to also learn about nutrition and fun food facts. Each person, when participating in the game Foodle, reads a card to the next player. The player then has to answer the trivia question on the card. If the person gets it correctly, they get to progress their game piece however many spots they rolled on the dice. If they get the question wrong, they have to complete what is called a Foodle-Do card. A Foodle-Do card is an active card, such as clap your hands 5 times, do 5 jumping jacks, reach down and touch your toes 3 times. This part of the game is to encourage physical activity and getting up and moving. The Foodle trivia cards contain fun facts about food, healthy choices, portion size, and etc. We always seem to learn something new every time we play this game. For more information or to purchase the game, you can visit the website down at the bottom. When completing the parent report form, Bethany identified 3 different areas that were a challenge for Luke. These areas revolved around the environment at home, the 3 main areas the mother identified as a challenge for him were in the environment section and included the family schedule, rules and requirements for doing things at home and school. She reported he prefers lots of downtime and to know his schedule ahead of time. He struggles with surprise additions to the schedule, making it hard to eat together at times. The use of the scope allowed the parent and therapist to have a dialogue about this newly obtained information. Although he had been treated for a year in feeding therapy, this information had never been brought to the table via the use of other assessment and typical forms of assessment for feeding. This information was very enlightening to the therapist, and it allowed her and the mom to have some discussion about some ways to help Luke at home. Luke actively participated as well. When scoring the assessment online, you can go into the Moho Clearing website. You click on Create a New Evaluation, start a new evaluation, selecting Scope as your assessment, Get Started for a new patient. You would click on the Find Existing Client if this is a reevaluation or you had already done this assessment with a child. Put in all of the information, select which setting is appropriate, and press Start. You complete each section, and then when you click to progress through the end of the section, it gives you assessment data summary. You can download it as an Excel or as a Word document. Once downloaded, you can press Next. The treatment goals gives you a section to brainstorm some goals that you can use over the next intervention duration and time. Since Luke's struggle was in the environment at home, we brainstormed that we could provide 3 prompts in 10-minute intervals before the family mealtime to give Luke some preparation before he was anticipated to sit down with the family and eat. When you progress forward, it takes you to a treatment planning section. We decided that we would develop a variety of prompts, including visual, verbal, and auditory, in order to assist Luke with the routine prior to mealtime. Once you save and continue, the online tool will provide you a summary of your treatment plans and then provide you a summary of the ratings and treatment plan to download into Microsoft Excel or Word. If scoring on paper, this is similar to what it looks like. These are the ratings I gave Luke in each section in the clinic. Now, these sections may look different if a different rater had scored him. They also may look different if we had scored him in a different environment, such as his home. However, this particular session and this particular rater identify these areas as these ratings, giving him an overall rating of 95. When used in regards to feeding, the scope is beneficial in identifying the child's response to challenge, response to transitions, routines, roles, problem solving, posture, coordination, strength, and energy. Areas of the environment that are beneficial include the physical space, physical resources, occupational demand, and family routine. Overall, this assessment was very useful for using during a feeding session. The ultimate goal of the scope ratings is to generate goals and intervention that support a child's anticipation in childhood roles and the occupations associated with them. This was definitely achieved with the scope and Luke and his mom's participation in the parent report form. The Moho provides therapists, caregivers, and clients to take an in-depth look at the motivating factors, values, interests, roles, routines, and personal causation that facilitates and inhibits successful engagement in the daily occupation of eating in children with feeding difficulties. A special thank you to Luke and Bethany for participating in the videos. I hope you guys learned something new.